Okay, what we got here, we got a room full of clocks. Now, we're not going to look at every single clock in here. There's two particular clocks that we're going to look at. But before we look at them clocks, we're going to look at a couple other ones. We're going to start with this one right here. This is a rare clock. These are actually called farm clocks. They're from the 1800s. And what makes this one rare is if you look right here, it's got a calendar on it with the day, the date, and the month. Now, this clock is very, very rare and very, very old. Okay, here's a little tag that the clock's called a perpetual calendar clock, is what it's called. And it's a very unique clock. You can see that the clock is up here, and then if we open this up, there's the clock in there. But look right here, and there's the directions how to set the calendar on this clock. And then if we look at the back of the door, there's the mechanism that runs the calendar. So everything on this clock, the mechanisms and the gears and everything, on a 24-hour system, it turns this clock and changes the day. That's today right here. It is Friday, and it is Friday the 20th, but I didn't know how to set the month because it's actually November right now, not April. But this is all working, okay? It all works, so that's pretty rare. Now, I want everybody to take a look at this. Now, here's my hand, so it's kind of showing you how big the clock is. There's my hand, okay? Okay, you can see there's my hand right there. So the clock is approximately 12 and a half, 13 inches tall. And there you go, right there. This is the loudest clock in the room. This clock right here is louder than any grandfather clock in this room. This is the loudest clock here. Okay. Now, what brand clock this is, I don't know. You know, leave a comment if you know anything about these clocks and you're a clock connoisseur. Leave a comment below and let me know. You know, give me some history and let other people know. And yeah, put it back in there. But you can kind of see how old this clock is. Look at the wood cracking. This is an old clock, okay? I'm pretty familiar with clocks, and I know the basics, but I don't know the names of all the clocks. Now, these clocks here, these are all farm clocks. And once again, if you're a clock person and you're looking at this video, leave comments on what's going on with these clocks. This clock here, it was working and then it stopped. But look at all the mechanism action going on this clock here. Besides having the clock, it's got this thing here. And like I said, it worked. It was working good, and then it quit working. And it'll probably work for like 5 minutes. And we'll go ahead and listen to this one. There you go. So this has two dingers on it. It's got one there, and then it's got another one that runs off this thing right here. And I don't know if that's working properly. But, yeah, this is another farm clock. Now, these are farm clocks. Now, this is what I was told, is that these were the farm clocks. They would put them in their kitchen, or they'd put them out in the barn, or in the, out in the barn. And this is the clocks that they would use on the farm. And I believe these were very inexpensive clocks back in the day. And then this one here is in pretty good shape. But see, even this one, and this one isn't wound up, and I'm not going to wind it up. But even this one is, see, it has that one there. Let's see if this one here will go off. Okay, this one's not even wound up, so there it goes. Okay, so it went off one time. All right. And then we got this little clock here that doesn't work. Now, this is a German clock right here, and this is kind of a popular clock. This is the kind that you see a lot of these around. This is a German-made, German-designed clock, and there's quite a few of those in this room. And if we look right here, here's another German clock, and I want to show you on this clock what happened. You can see that the pendulum is over here, and if we look right here, can you see that little thing? Let me turn it over here. I want to show you. If you look real close, you can see there's a piece of metal right there, shiny metal. That's like as thin as paper. And the pendulum actually hangs from this thing. Okay, here it is. All right, I'm going to set it back in here because we don't want to lose that. The pendulum actually hangs from this. It hooks onto that little hook there. But if you look right here, it's got like a little piece of metal. It's like this long, and it's like thin as paper, and that's what actually the clock pendulum rides on. So this one actually broke while we had it in use, and the pendulum dropped off of it. So that has to be fixed, and it will be fixed. Now, this clock right here, this is called a Johann. Now, the reason I know that is because I actually have one, not in this particular case. But if you see a face like this, a clock face like this design right here, this is a Johann clock. Okay, that's the brand of it. And so we got this one here, and then we also have this one here. And this is a Johann as well. Now, I want everybody to look at the structure on this. Look at the intricate structure on the pendulum. Okay, and look at the beautiful color. This is walnut, possibly solid walnut. Veneer walnut. It's just beautiful wood, and I don't want to take the clock out, but we can kind of get a gander. So the Johann clocks were really popular, and I would say this is probably from the early 20s. I'd say this is an early 20 clock. Now, we bought this at an estate sale, and they wanted $200 for it. We ended up giving them $100. And if we look at this clock right here, this is a very rare clock. This is an early 1800s French clock. And I picked this one up. Okay, I don't know if you can see the weights in there. All right, there's the weights. Look how big and bulky those are. We can't see the side of this clock. It's encased. But I picked this clock up for $200. Okay, this is a $200 early 1800th century clock, and it works, and I'm going to go ahead and show you this. Okay, and if we look at the second hand, okay, do you see the situation we got? Look at the second hand, the way it's fluttering. Okay, so there's a gear inside the clock that is misaligned. So this clock here is going to have to be taken apart and restored. But this clock is worth restoring. And I'm going to go ahead and do this. I want you to hear what this one sounds like. So this clock's been sitting in somebody's house for a very long time. The person I bought it from said that this was their grandparents' clock, and they were trying to get $1,000 for it. The problem you have with these clocks, especially at estate sales, is people don't know how to take them apart, okay? They don't know how to transport them, and when they see a clock like it, intimidates them. Now this is all hand painted, all right, and it's just a beautiful clock. And no, I don't know the name of it. Like I said, if you know about these clocks, leave comments about them. Here is what you call a fake. This is made in Japan. This is a made in Japan grandfather wall clock. These weights, okay, they're fake. You can see right here, they're just kind of hooked on to the wood here. And the only thing that works on this is you can wind it up. Now this is a 30-day clock, but let me show you here. Okay, it's a 30-day made in Japan clock. And if you're looking for a clock and you see a beautiful clock like this and you see this emblem right here, stay away from it. The clock is not worth anything. It's junk. It works, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't have a dinger in it. It doesn't ding dong. And it's just basically made of, for looks only. It does tell good time. It's a 30-day winder. And if you want a clock that you can look at and say, wow, look at this. This is a great clock to have. But if you're collecting a clock, stay away from it. The wood that you see, this is made out of plywood. All the wood on this is plywood. I can't get in there to show you. If you can, I don't know if you can see in there. You can see the grain of the plywood inside that. But made in Japan. And if you find one in a estate sale and they want $300 or $400, don't buy it. Always open it up and look at the face. I'm going to open it again. And if you see a clock that looks like that, don't get it. Now we're going to go to this grandfather clock here. This is not a grandfather clock. And you can read the name right there. I want everybody to see that. And if anybody out there is watching this that knows clocks, they know what this clock is. This is a late 1700th century clock made in France by a farmer. Now farmers used to make these clocks. I'm going to open this side up and I'm going to show you. Okay, if we can open that up, if you can see the box that this clock is in, this metal box. Okay, I don't want to disturb it. This is actually called a shelf kitchen clock. And this is from the late early 1800s. Now this clock was not designed to be in a box. Somebody had this box customly made for this clock to put in this clock. And I'm going to open it very, very easily. And that is the clock right there. You can see the bell up on top. Alright. And I wish we could get inside it and you can see the mechanism. It's very, very intricate, and very, very few clock workers even know how to work on this clock. And one more time we're going to look at the name right here. And then I'm going to show you up here. And I want you to look what I did here. I had to put business cards on this contraption they made. And what the deal is where the pendulum comes out of, you can see it's just a very, very thin piece of metal. There's a slot that thing fits in, and it's about that big. And that has to be perfectly 100% level this way and this way for that clock to work. It took me 3.5 hours to get this clock to work and to stay running. So, yeah, very, very unusual, you might say. This is a very old and unusual collector clock right here. Now, I like this clock right here, but it's really not a collector's item. It's a mid-century design. When I say mid-century, I'm talking from the 60s. I would say early 60s. And it's got the 3 weights on it. And when you see these 3 weights, that's telling you either 2 things. That it dings at every 15 minutes, or it's got a musical type Winchester chime to it. So we're going to go ahead and go down here. So that's at the half-hour mark. Now let's go up here to the hour mark, and we're going to see what it does. Okay. And that clock did not do the whole chime. Let's try it one more time. Let's try it one more time. Okay, so the chimes didn't work all the way, and that's one reason is because it probably needs to be cleaned and oiled. But it's still a very unique clock, and I wouldn't call this a collector clock, but it's a clock that's pretty cool because it has those chimes on it. Now, we got this clock here, and you can see it's almost 8 feet tall. This one here is over 7 feet tall. So this clock here is pretty unique. Once again, if you know the names of these clocks and you know the history of them, please leave comments below. I'd really appreciate it. But the chime doesn't work on this one either, and that has to be fixed, but the second hand works. Okay? So this is kind of an unusual, rare clock as well. Now these clocks that I'm going to show you right here, this is where you really want to watch your P's and Q's when buying them because they're really not worth any money. And we're talking about mantle clocks. This is a mantle clock right here. And it's usually a fireplace mantle, that's why they call them mantle clocks. But the situation you have with these things is 9 out of 10 times they normally don't work. And to restore a clock like this costs around $400 to $600 to take it to a clock expert and to restore it. If you try to sell these mantle clocks, they're not worth anything. You'll be lucky to get $75, $50 for them, and they're just not worth it. If you like them for looks, okay, both the clocks that I'm showing you here, they both need to be repaired. And my buddy Les, that actually owns all these clocks, he's not going to do anything with them. But they are beautiful clocks. Somebody even restored this one, and you can tell they took their time to do it. Look at the high gloss lacquer finish on this and all of the hand painted gold trim. So this clock here has actually been restored, okay? And you can normally, if you buy one of these clocks, here's another one. Let's take a look at that right here, okay? Here's one that I purchased at an estate sale. It's called a Sessions. Now there's another clock called, okay, what is that? Seth Thomas. A Seth Thomas, and there's the same thing. And you can get on eBay and you can find all the parts to restore this clock. You can find everything to restore it because most people that buy these, they will dismantle them and they sell the parts on eBay. So if you come across one of these clocks at an estate sale or a garage sale or something, and they got a price on there for $200, do not buy it. Now here's an unusual clock right here. Once again, I don't know the names of these clocks, and if anybody out there is watching this, please leave comments below because I'm curious myself. But I don't believe this clock works either, and it needs restored. Okay, we picked this clock up. I picked this clock up, I believe, for $50, and I think it was a good buy. But let me go ahead and explain. Here's another clock that needs completely restored. And you need to watch your P's and Q's when you're buying this type of clock too, because this, let me show you something, this comes off. Do you see what I'm doing here? Okay, and a lot of times when you buy these clocks, the top isn't the original top that came with the clock, so you got to watch what you're getting. Another thing is, do you see this ball right here? Well, there's supposed to be another one right here, and then there's supposed to be another one here, and they're not there. So those are lost. Now, I gave $20 for this clock, and it needs completely restored. But it's beautiful just to sit there and look at. So let me go ahead and explain this, and then I'm going to show you the last two clocks that I was going to show you. Let me go ahead and explain the situation when you're buying these used clocks. If you need to restore one of these clocks, if it needs to be rebuilt, you're looking at a minimum charge. This is a minimum charge of $400 to a professional clock shop that specializes in these. You're looking anywhere from $400 to $1,000 depending on what clock you got. This clock right here was $1,200 to restore. And the reason is because of the mechanisms and the gears and the structure of that clock, the way it's built, it takes a very special person to rebuild that one. If they need to know what's going on with that clock. Now, to restore this clock right here is going to cost anywhere from $400 to $550. And more than likely, when I say restore a clock, more than likely what they're going to do, because there's no springs broke in it, there's no catches broke, there's no gears broke, what they'll do is they will dismantle it, they will put all the gears and all the brass parts in an ultrasonic cleaner, and then they'll put it back together and they'll oil it. That's it. Okay? And that's going to cost between $400 and $550. Now, when you bring one of the farm clocks in to get rebuilt, they're going to tell you it costs about $700 because these are very old. And the thing about this clock versus this clock is nothing. It's the same thing. This clock, all these clocks have the exact same thing in them as this clock right here. But they're going to tell you, since these are older clocks, it's going to cost more money to restore them. Okay, our farm clock just went off. Thank you. Now here's a clock that my buddy, Mr. Majestic, that owns these clocks, he is very upset and pretty much pissed off about. This is called a mercury clock. And if you look at the weights, you can see the mercury inside the glass bubbles, or the glass containers, vials, the glass vials. He bought this clock and he paid $300 for it, and there's the price. So he paid $300 for it, and they guaranteed him that it would work. So instead of actually testing it out there, he buys the clock, and then instead of bringing it back here and actually testing the clock, he put it in storage for 1.5 years, 2 years. So it sat in storage, and then he pulls it out, and then now he's pissed because the clock doesn't work. To restore this clock, just because it's a mercury clock, they're going to tell him that it's going to be $600 to restore that clock. I can already tell you that's what they're going to say. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. $600 or $700 will have it working, and all they're going to do possibly is take it apart, clean all the parts, and oil it up and put it back together. Because the thing about all these old clocks is they are like dinosaurs and tanks. They never break, and if something breaks on them, it's very easy to fix the parts. They last forever. You cannot overwind a clock. You cannot overwind it. Alright? This clock doesn't work. And then this clock over here, this is an electric clock, but I thought it was pretty cool for $5 at an estate sale. Now, before we look at the last two that I wanted to show you, this is called a paperweight. This is what they call these, are paperweight clocks. They're very, very heavy, and they're marble-based clocks. And here's another one right here. And they got bronze statues on them. These are bronze cast statues. These are French clocks. And to restore one of these clocks is about $650. We had this clock restored. My friend Les had this, Mr. Majestic, he had this one restored. It was $650, and he had to wait 2 months because there was a little piece in it that was misaligned or something, and then he finally found the little piece, and it was $650 to restore this clock. And we get it back, and the little bell on the clock, it only worked for about a week, and it quit working. So it tells time, it's just that the bell is misaligned or something in there. And the thing about these clocks, let me show you back here. This is another thing, is when you open these clocks up and you look at them, it's very hard, okay, to get inside there and actually work on them without taking the clock completely apart. So I don't know why it's not working, but that's not my business. Okay, for the final last two clocks that we're going to look at in this room, I want to go ahead and show you these two right here. And this is what you call a rare commodity, is when you can find the brother and sister clock and you got one of each. I don't know the brand of this clock. Once again, if somebody knows the brand or the maker of this clock, please leave a comment below so I can read it. This one has 2 weights on it. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and open that up, and we're going to take a look at it, and I am going to go ahead, there we go, and if you look in there you can see the chimes. So I'm going to show you what this one sounds like. Let's go ahead and then I want to show you the intricate work. This is a late 1800s, early 1900s grandfather clock. Now what's rare about this one is I'm getting ready to show you here. There we go. Okay, what's rare about this one is that we actually have the matching sister clock. That is very, very, very rare to have one of each of these clocks in the same room. Now they call this a sister clock because this is what my buddy Mr. Majestic told me, is that when it has the 3 weights in it, it's a female clock because it plays beautiful music, and the boy clock, which is the male, it has 2 weights, which basically just go ding dong. So let's go over to this clock now. We're going to go ahead and open it up. See if I can get that open. And we're going to be very careful with this. I just bought this clock today. Now when I say I bought the clock, I found the clock for my buddy Mr. Majestic. Okay, I just found this clock in an estate sale. They wanted $1,500 for it, and I gave him $500 cash. Or should I say Mr. Majestic gave him $500 cash. So on this particular clock, it's got the little mechanism here, and there's 3 settings on it. And I don't know which setting it should be on. I believe it should be up. And if you have any information on these clocks, once again, please leave a comment. I'd like to know, about the clocks. We're going to go ahead and do this now. I want you to hear this one. This has the Winchester chimes in it. Let's see if it'll play all the way. So yeah, there you go. That's really what I want to show you. Basically, is these 2 clocks right here. Having a brother and sister clock of the same era, same year type situation, and one of each. That's pretty rare. These are very beautiful clocks. They're solid walnut. Everything that you're looking at on these 2 clocks here is hand carved. These are hand carved. Look at that. That's just amazing. Handmade clocks. If you have information on these, please leave a comment. Let me know what you think about them. And I hope you enjoyed this little tour of Mr. Majestic's Clock Factory. Oh, I'm sorry. What do we got over here? Okay. Alright. Big Bell, small boy here, decided to ding for us. This is Pete, my friend Pete, your friend Pete, looking at clocks and checking out clocks and buying clocks and saying, wow, this is a lot of freaking clocks. Take it easy.